Okay, let's talk about Wuthering Waves then, and what I think needs to change. I think that we drastically need some change in how events and updates are tackled. Going back off the video that we just watched on stream in regards to Huyo, and that this game can't follow the things that Huyoverse have done in regards to Genshin because it's a different time, there's competition. Genshin was kind of a leader in this sort of gacha game in regards. Obviously, there's been gacha games before, but it's the gacha game that went, let's say, global. It broke out to the niche. It became the trendsetter, and we don't want Wuthering Waves to follow the negatives that have happened in that game. We want it to look at the positives and build on them. And I don't think we do need Wuthering Waves to be a character farmer game. It shouldn't be all just about the new banner, the new character, getting materials for the new banners, for the new characters, which what at the minute is what it kind of feels like. We're in that kind of loop. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been some cool companion stories and all that sort of stuff, but I definitely do think the events in the game need a little bit more. We need to branch out from the small instance fights, just clearing something in a set time or getting so much damage or doing it in a particular way to get as much points as possible to clear everything, to get your asteroids and to get some materials. All that sort of stuff's good, and I want that stuff to stay, and I want more of it, but I also want more. I've said this a bunch of times, and it doesn't have to be this sort of content. It's something that's bigger and better, like this, like dungeons, like raids, like something that's just a little bit more about the gameplay loop itself. That's the reward in itself, is that this is a fun thing to do, and it's not about the end goal of, oh, I've got a bunch of materials out of it now, that's one and done, and let's go on to the next thing, and then right, okay, I guess I'll do some more Tower of Adversity if I want to, let's do a bit more farming, and then you're back to the, well, I haven't really got much to do, and right, let's go just get to my logins every day to get my asteroids for the next banner. I don't think Wuthering Waves wants to be that. It shouldn't be that, and I think if it tries to be that, it's going to inevitably, I think, probably not fail, but fail to live up to what it potentially could be. I think this game is going to continue to do well. I don't think it's ever going to reach the heights of Huyo games, but I think it could do a lot better and massively improve its standing in regards to what people think of it if it actually just expanded on the events, made them less about being filler and more about being an actual replayable, enjoyable experience. Now, let me just talk about why I've been banging on about dungeons and raids so much. I just think that the way the game's designed, it's perfect for it. It's an RPG. You know, let's take some MMO elements and bring them into the game. I think they're well suited for this genre. They're perfect for it. We've got a live service RPG anyway, so let's bring in some MMO elements. You know, let's get some world bosses, let's get some stuff that happens on the fly in that regards, you know, stuff that can be an optional instance in the new world, in the open world, where something kind of like how the holograms are, it pops up, a totem pops up or something like that, and you can go into matchmaking and do that content with randoms, with friends, or even do it solo if you want. I think those sort of things would be really cool. Difficult content as well. I do think dungeons would be a really good thing to add into the game, instead of having, like, you obviously keeping your forgeries, but instead of having just things like that where you go into a forgery, you clear it, a tacit field, you clear it, the Tower of Adversity, you clear it, it's just a little instance and you clear it, the simulacrum, you clear it, all good, but just kind of bland in my opinion. I want content. Now, I've mentioned this a few times, the last quest for Changli, the actual, it's basically like a dungeon you go through, isn't it, really? A little bit of like puzzle work, you know, a bit of exploration, a bit of exposition, and then you get to the end and you've got your fight. And that was a great story, and I think it's a perfect testbed to try some dungeons. Use the design of that map as well. Use that for a dungeon, for a raid. You know, you could have solo dungeons that are specifically solo, or co-op if you want, or even matchmake, where it's kind of just a small little dungeon. You go through, you do some bits and bobs, and you maybe fight a couple of elite enemies at the end. And then bigger, more vast, expansive raid type systems that can be done solo, that can be done co-op, and can be done matchmaked as well. where you have an explorable dungeon that's semi-linear, but also got a little bit of exploration to it as well. You can do a bit of chest finding, all that sort of stuff. Nothing crazy, just something that feels a little bit more expansive, that's got multiple steps to it, that's got some light puzzle work, that's got some platforming, that's you get to a position and right, you've cleared a puzzle and you fight a bunch of mobs and maybe an elite, and then you move on to the next section, you do a little bit more, you fight a couple of elites now with some more mobs, and there's a little bit of a more difficult fight, and then you get all the way to the end once you've got through all of this and you fight a hologram type boss. It's difficult, and then once you've cleared it, there's a higher level of difficulty and all the enemies hit harder. They might have buffs added to them, there might be debuffs added to you, all that sort of stuff. And as you clear content, there could be secret little areas that are opened up that you have to clear the first couple of levels to find these secret little areas, to find extra chests, to find extra materials, all this good stuff. And of course, they could limit it, so once you've cleared them once or twice or whatever it is, you don't get particular materials from them. You could just use it to farm shell credits and stuff like that. But the enjoyment itself is going through it. You can pull echoes and stuff because you'll get drops from echoes through the tacit discords, through the fights. And you get to the end, say it's 4 or 5 clears, and you've got like a seriously difficult hologram type fight at the end of that. I think that would be really, really cool. They could even add in mechanics into some of the fights in regards to, some of the different platforms that you've got that can be added maybe into actual boss fights as well. There's a mechanic where you're in the fight, the boss backs off or something, you have to do a few things to be able to engage with the fight again, or I don't know. Think outside the box a little bit, make it something a little bit different. But I do think the game definitely needs to start leaning into that, because my worry is that we're going down a route now where we're just popping out these little updates. It's like, go to this place, fight an instance fight, you got some materials, awesome. There's a new banner coming soon, so let's farm all these different instances. This one's slightly different. We've got a little event that's something like the fair that we've got now, which I like. I really like the fair, and I want that sort of stuff to continue. And I'm not saying I don't want all these little instanced events that would take 30 seconds to clear and you get your materials, and it's 12 of those and they unlock over a couple of days. They're fine, but I don't want them to be the mainstay of the game. And I think if they do become the mainstay of the game for the foreseeable future, and the only thing we've got to look forward to is new story updates and companion quests that come with banners and stuff, I just think the game's going to really become dry really quickly. I think it needs something else. The game needs to take a different direction to give itself its own identity and separate itself from the Huyo games. They can do that. That's kind of their MO, and that's what people expect. And it works. They've got a history. Games like Genshin now have got a cost bias along with them. They've got a time bias that people have put all this time into. They've got an attachment to those games. They've got an affinity to those games. Wuthering Waves has to do it differently. It has to tackle the space differently, and it really has to lean into what it's good at, and that's its gameplay. It really has to make that the forefront, and the gacha system needs to be a priority because they need to make money, but it needs to be done in a way that you are here for the gameplay, and the gacha system makes you want to invest in it because you're here for an awesome game, and you're not here to just do your dailies and then bounce. They really should be trying to keep people engaged throughout the updates. Of course, there's going to be lulls when there's just not so much to do, because they're not magic workers. They're not going to be able to keep pumping out infinite content all the time. But they do need to start designing the game so when you get an update, there's new stuff throughout the update, and stuff that keeps you interested in playing the game every day for the sake of playing the game, not just to get your wave plates clocked out, not just to get your dailies done, not just to finish off your podcast because you bought the podcast and you feel that you need to clear it. Huyo can do that because that's their business model and it works. They need to pivot, and they need to come away from that, and it'll be less about the banners and be more about the game itself. And then I just think inevitably the banners, when they come out, will do well, because every time a banner drops as well, you could have a new raid that's kind of based around that character, and that could implement a little bit of FOMO. The raid's kind of designed to work with that character, kind of how the Tower of Adversity can be and all that sort of stuff. And it's clearable without the character, but it's also, there's ways that having the character will benefit your run through it, or you'll get something different in regards to the run. It'll feel different, it's targeted more at that character. I just think that could be a really good thing for the game. And of course, there's lots of other things that could add into the game as well. But I do think, like world bosses, open world bosses, overworld bosses, raids, dungeons, you know, cooperative events, matchmaking events on the overworld that make things feel different. You know, even like light PvP in the regards to races, score things, you know, not necessarily PvP combat where you're going head to head with another player, but just something where it's like, first to get so many points, you know, you're both fighting enemies in the same spot together, and the first person to clear it, or the first person to finish a race or an obstacles or course or something like that would add a little bit of fun as well. Just something light-hearted that's small and easy to do, and it's just a little bit different as well. But I definitely do think the game needs to come away from what it's doing right now. Although what it's doing right now is still pretty awesome, it needs to get its own unique identity, and it needs to separate itself from being Genshin 2.0. Again, this goes back to why I'm not that excited for Azure Premilia, because I worry that we're going to get the same thing with that, and we're going to have 3 or 4 games that are kind of all just basically doing the same thing, but they're just a different skin, really. And I think at the end of the day then, what's the point in playing all these other games if you can just go back and play Genshin, because you've got a few years in the game anyway, you've already spent money in the game. What's going to pull people away from playing those games? And I think Kuro really need to think about that. Hopefully they do, and hopefully in the future we start to see some changes like that. But yeah, I think they need to start doing it fast, because I'm not gonna lie, this update is good, but I'm starting to get worried about what's coming. It seems the most exciting thing about the game at the moment is, right, we've got some new story content coming and we've got new banners coming. Other than that, they're not taking advantage of what the game's good at, and that's the gameplay. I'd like to know what you guys think as well. What do you think? What do you think about the direction that Wuthering Waves is going? Do they need to pivot and lean into other elements of the RPG genre, bring in stuff from MMOs, you know, give us something that's a little bit more meaty? Or do you think what they're doing right now is the right thing? It's nice to just hop in, do some silly little event, and then bounce? Would you want something a little bit more? Are you a casual? Are you somebody who's min-maxing, playing the shit out of the game? Are you a whale? Are you a light spender? Are you free to play? I'd like to know what everybody thinks, really, because I do think the game needs to go in a different way, for the benefit of everybody. It'll benefit us, and I think obviously it's going to benefit Kuro as well. But yeah, let me know what you think.